This is Chargers Now. I am your host, Will Ortner, and after a very exciting night where we learned that Mike McDaniel will be the new OC of the LA Chargers, I thought today would be a perfect opportunity for us to look at the 2026 NFL Draft and who are my top 5 targets that the Chargers are going to be looking at pick number 22. Now, not every single player is going to be on the offensive side of the football because, well, we might have to find a way to entice defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to make sure that he stays in the building. So we're going to look at the top 5 targets that the Chargers will have. But before we do that, we need to look at the team needs right now for this Chargers team. And I'll tell you, interior offensive line, that's 1 and 2. Somehow, some way, the Chargers have to get better at center and at both guard positions. Now, I do think it's possible that the Chargers will target some free agents, and we have that video as well, so make sure that you go and check that out on the channel. But if they choose not to go after certain free agents or they're not able to land some of the big fish that they may be searching for in LA, look for them to add those types of players in the draft. When you look at the third need, interior defensive line is another position, defensive line as a whole. It just depends on who the Chargers are able to bring back. Are they able to bring back Tart? If so, well, then maybe that need might drop a little bit. But right now, we're going to pretend that no one gets re-signed necessarily, just in case that could be a position that the Chargers will target. And a lot of experts in mock drafts have the Chargers targeting interior defensive line. Next, I would say cornerback and wide receiver are 2 needs that are clear, but at the same time, not maybe necessarily the most pressing. I need to hear your opinion. Let you have your opportunity to make your voice be heard. What's the biggest need for the Chargers this offseason? Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you think it's a specific position group? Do you think it's one specific position, like on the offensive line, it is just center? Is it just outside receiver? Is it just the slot corner? Whatever position group you think or whatever position as a whole, let me know down below in the comment section. The first player that I want to talk about today is defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, Caleb Banks. He would be my number 5 target for the Chargers. By the way, this will go from 5 to 1, so make sure that you hang around as long as possible. When you look at the 2025 season for Banks, obviously it is very lackluster. Now, you have to remember, though, the reason why his year wasn't quite so good is because he had a foot injury in fall camp, missed the first 2 games of the season. Then Banks ends up coming back, trying to play against LSU, ends up getting re-injured, having to have surgery, and then ends up just playing the final couple of games. But when you look at those numbers for an interior defensive lineman, to basically average 2 tackles a game, that's a pretty good clip. To force a bunch of pressure and have a fumble recovery, I was pretty darn impressed with what Banks was able to do. It's also important to mention that the previous season, Banks was one of the better players on that Florida defense, a defense that was actually pretty darn good. When I look at Caleb Banks, he is a disruptor. He's a guy who is quick, who is not afraid to use his hands to get off blocks, but at the same time, he's big enough, he's strong enough, and he's physical enough that if an offensive lineman does have a good set on him, he's able to push that offensive lineman back. Banks has had a couple of NFL mock draft experts penciled in to the Chargers, and for me, while defensive line isn't necessarily the most glaring or pressing need, he is still a fantastic player, and he is someone that the Chargers will definitely take a good, hard look at. At number 4, I think that this might be the player with maybe the most name recognition, although number 1 might have him beat out as well. But Kadyn Proctor is a fascinating product when you look at the offensive line products in this draft. He's also the type of player that could really explode onto the scene. This comes to us from Jacob Infante, a guy who does a lot of mock draft stuff in the National Football League. And when you look at the pluses for Proctor, he's obviously got a massive frame, a frame that allows him to play on the offensive ends, aka the offensive tackle positions. Now, you might say to yourself, Will, why are you showing me an offensive tackle? We already have Rashawn Slater and we already have Joe Alt. which I understand, but let me get through the pluses, and then you'll see the method to my madness here. He has rare explosiveness for his size. He can anchor down in pass pro, so when guys are trying to get that bull rush on him, he can sit down. He's not going to get blown back. If he gets his hands on you, you're not getting away from Proctor. And he's also does a good job of understanding when to use a single hand punch, when to use a double hand punch. As a former offensive lineman, watching a lot of his tape, I just find beautiful in these aspects. When you look at the negatives, though, where does Proctor struggle? He struggles mainly with change of direction and spatial awareness. Well, if you're going to be an offensive tackle, you cannot struggle with spatial awareness or change of direction. Proctor also translates, though, when you look at the pluses, to being a very good guard at the next level. So when I look at Proctor for the Chargers, he's not a guy that would come in and play at the offensive tackle position because those are clearly already covered. But Proctor's the type of guy that you could move in to that guard position. I know it's scary because it didn't work with Mekhi Becton last year, but he could really excel because guard is where most of his pluses are, other than the fact that he is 6'7". Proctor has a huge boom or bust potential, just like Mekhi Becton. And I understand why Charger fans go, don't compare anyone to Mekhi Becton. I don't want him. Well, remember, Becton in his year over in Philadelphia was one of the better offensive guards in the National Football League. Now, he didn't work out in LA, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. If you're telling me that I can get Proctor in as a rookie and he's learning and he's getting, the Jim Harbaugh treatment early, I think that Proctor could really excel in this offense, and I think that he can fix that guard problem that the Chargers have while also still being a cheaper player because he is obviously a draft pick instead of having to go and pay a bunch of money in free agency. It's a huge boom or bust potential, but if Proctor is there, might not be a bad idea to take a look at him. Coming up, I have my top 3 prospects for the Chargers at number 22. Tell you right now, a lot of guys in the trenches there. Make sure that you don't miss out on my number 1 guy. But before we get to any of that, I need to update you right now on our sub battle. I told you about this on the video yesterday. I should say the first video yesterday, that we were in a sub battle in a race to get to 2,000 subscribers with Panthers Today and Cardinals Today. Those are 2 of the other growth channels here at Chat Sports, and we are blowing them out of the water right now. Do not let that growth slow down. Come on in, hit that sub button. The minute that the Mike McDaniel news broke, guess who did a video? I did. As soon as there is breaking news or rumors on the Chargers, we will have you covered here on this channel. I promise you that. So come on in, hit that sub button. 1, so we beat those teams in the NFC, but more importantly, so that way you don't miss out on anything going on with the Chargers in 2026. The next target that I want to take a look at is the defensive tackle Peter Woods over at Clemson. Now, why do I want to look at Peter Woods after a year that many would say was lackluster? Well, because the potential is still there. Like a lot of players at Clemson, like the Clemson Tigers in general, last year for Woods was kind of a letdown. Now, when I'm saying a letdown year for a player that has 30 tackles and 2 sacks from an interior defensive line position, that is a big deal. He's still got the quickness. He's not afraid to use his hands. Great hand fighter. And of course, when you're in the interior of the defensive line, you have to be able to stop the run. Now, going into this season, when you look at like the way too early mock drafts, Woods was a guy who was projected to be a top 10 pick. And there is a reason for that, because he has all the tools. Now, unfortunately for Woods and unfortunately for Clemson, he was not able to put all those tools together last season. You're telling me that if he comes to LA, he isn't going to be able to put all those tools together? I love what I'm seeing out of this defensive line, and I believe that the Chargers would be able to get the most out of him. So I think that he would be a good potential go and get if these top 2 guys are already taken off the board. The next player that I want to talk about, Kayden McDonald. Just an absolute game wrecker on the interior of the defensive line for The Ohio State University. McDonald is a guy who a lot of people thought, hey, he's going to be pretty decent. They did not know that he was going to be this decent. When you have a guy on the interior of the defensive line that's getting sacks, we saw this in Kansas City with Chris Jones and in LA with Aaron Donald, it completely changes the landscape of the defense and everything that you're able to do. What McDonald also does a great job of is getting a ton of total tackles and tackles in the backfield. When you look at defensive linemen, the goal for them is to always make tackles in the backfield. As a former offensive lineman, I was okay if a linebacker made a tackle because that means we probably gained a couple of yards. If a defensive lineman made a tackle, 9 times out of 10, that was in the backfield. The Chargers need to continue to strengthen this defensive line. It was a pretty darn good crew, but I do think there is some solace and there is something that is to be said about making a strength an even greater strength. And Kayden McDonald would definitely do that on the defensive line. And when you look at this free agent class, while the Chargers have the most cap space in the National Football League, you still have to be smart about where you allocate your funds. So it might not be a bad idea for the Chargers to spend more money in free agency on offensive weapons and then use the draft to kind of supplement and replace some of the potential players that they could be losing on the defense because it's already a strong point. So to me, if you add in McDonald, that's not only making a strength stronger, but it's also allowing yourself to free up more cap space to be used on other position groups that might be more of a need. Now, the last player that I want to look at is the home run guy. This guy right here, Vega Ioane. This kid is an absolute stud, and I'm going to make sure that I say his name one more time because it can be very difficult to pronounce. Vega Ioane. He is an absolute stud from PSU. He is the number 1 rated guard, and he hails from my home state, and that, of course, is Washington State. Shout out to Graham Washington, living out in the woods. Now, here's the deal with Ioane. He is the type of player that can sit down on his blocks. He's fast enough to get out on the edges. Do you remember last year when Penn State, used to line up a guard out at wide receiver or would use a guard at tight end to go into motion and run him as a fullback or use him in all these weird, funky mumbo-jumbo formations? That was this guy. He's the best athlete in this class, and he would instantly come in and be the best guard on this roster. The Chargers need to build this team through the trenches. It's what Harbaugh wants to do. It's what McDaniel wants to do. And it's the best way to make Justin Herbert feel more comfortable. The most impressive thing about Ioane is how well he plays in both the pass and in the run. When you look at his PFF grades, 1, not allowing a sack is unbelievable. The fact that he only got caught for 1 penalty is always going to be a plus. But most importantly, when you look at those run and those pass blocking numbers, they are essentially the same. You are getting a complete player, not a player that's good at pass pro, but then has to improve his run blocking, or vice versa. This is a complete player with the athleticism to match. He would instantly be the best offensive lineman on this team, or at least in the trenches, but he would be the best possible get that the Chargers can have. If Ioane is there at 22, the Chargers have to take him. The question is, will he be there at 22? Let me know down below in the comment section, who is your favorite player? Which player do you want the Chargers to go in and pick up? If it's Caleb Banks, type CB. If it's Kadyn Proctor, type KP. If it's Peter Woods, type PW. If it's Kayden McDonald, type KM. And if it's Vega Ioane, make sure that you type that OI down below in the comment section. I want to know what the rest of the Chargers fan base, with Chargers Nation, who they would like to have in LA next year most. Keep fingers crossed that all 5 of those guys are available at pick 22. Thank you guys again so much for viewing the video today. Make sure that you hit that sub button. We are the fastest growing, recently launched channel here at Chat Sports. So make sure that you come in, hit that sub button. We got you covered on any Chargers news or rumors that's going on in 2026. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and bolt up.